Hey everybody, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com back for another Pittsburgh Steelers tape breakdown. I want to talk Daniel McCullers today, and judging by the title of the video, this is obviously not going to be a highly complimentary video of Daniel McCullers, but I do want to at least preface by saying, while I've been certainly critical of McCullers and will be in this video, there has been clear and definite improvement with him over the last two seasons. I think defensive line coach Carl Dunbar matches much better with McCullers than John Mitchell, the old D-line coach, did. Just a better personality to work with a guy like McCullers, but the video today is just talking about McCullers and where he struggles as an individual and the way the game is evolving, where schematically he doesn't fit into where the Steelers defense is at, where it's evolved to, and why that would be a problem, and why he simply cannot be the Steelers starting nose tackle in 2020. Steelers defense has evolved into a one gap scheme much more than, say, a decade ago when they were a two gap team. And just the premise of one gap versus two gap is one gapping for the defensive line. They're attacking literally one gap. They're shooting a gap, they're penetrating, they're getting upfield, they're trying to cause disruption. In the old two gap style of things, like you had a decade ago with guys like Casey Hampton and Aaron Smith, and even the early career of Brett Kiesel, it was a two gap system. It was taking on blockers, bench pressing blockers, keeping vision of the football, being responsible for two gaps, the A gap, the B gap. We're not penetrating. We're just taking on blocks to free up the linebackers. That was the premise of two gapping. Now it's a one gapping scheme. And now the Steelers, as we'll kind of get into the tape here, like to do a lot of stunts and do different penetrating things to create disruption, to kind of create chaos within the offensive line blocking scheme. So examples here where McCullers simply just cannot fit into that scheme. This is 2018 against the Atlanta Falcons. And let me go back to the start of this play from the end zone view. And right here, we're going to have Cam Hayward. He's going to shoot into the A gap, and McCullers is going to replace him over the top and scrape over the top into the B gap. And McCullers simply just does not have the athleticism, the lateral mobility, and agility to get over the top and replace Hayward's gap. So you see here, Hayward's going to shoot down. McCullers is going to try to scrape over, but he cannot get over the top here of 71 and 70, and it creates a big gap for the running back and ultimately an 8-yard gain. So you see he gets caught here. He gets reached by the left guard, and it's an 8-yard gain. He can't get over until Metakevich comes across and makes the tackle. So let me play this thing through. And again, Haywood in the A gap, McCullers scraping over the top. So whenever you try to stunt and penetrate, both guys have to obviously be able to do their jobs and fulfill their new responsibility. Hayward scraped down, McCullers over the top, unable to do it here. And that's a big problem with this play. Now I want to show you a clip of Javon Hargrave in this same game executing this and what that looks like. Okay, third quarter, same game against the Falcons, and they're going to run the same stunt, only a whole lot better this time, with Javon Hargrave being the nose tackle, the man scraping over the top compared to Daniel McCullers. So Hayward's going to shoot the A gap down. Hargrave's going to scrape and replace over the top, and you see he does a much better job of being able to work clean, get over the top, because of course he's a better athlete, and then ultimately actually ends up making the tackle, or at least basically helping in him and Anthony Chickolo, and it becomes a 4-yard loss. So again, Hayward's going to shoot down, step down, basically just to disrupt, because this is a zone scheme for the Falcons. We're trying to disrupt the track of their zone scheme. And so now 71, instead of flowing down, and we're all could just, that offensive line's all reaching and just basically moving those guys down the line. The running back will find the gap. That's the premise of a zone scheme. Now 71 has to stop. He's trying to now reach and cut off Hayward. Now Hargrave's able to come over the top. There's no one there to get him. 71's going to end up being late to react here. And Hargrave, because he's a good athlete, because he has good mobility and agility, and the ability to flow and run laterally, is able to now shoot that gap basically, and just that little, it's a little stunt, little run stunt here, and it's a 4-yard loss. So let me run this thing through and shut up for a second so you guys can look at it, and then we'll look at it maybe one more time and again go through this tape and show you the big difference between those two guys. So let me actually now shut up and run this thing through and move on to the next play. And actually, what I'll do is, and hopefully I'll edit this well, I'll try to put a side by side of both clips of McCullers in this game and Hargrave in this game to really show you guys the differences between how well Hargrave's able to stunt and execute this run stunt, and how much McCullers struggles, because they're just two totally different type of guys. This is week 11 against the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2018. Again, a similar stunt idea right here, where you're going to get the defensive end here is going to slant into the A gap. McCullers needs to scrape over the top into the B gap, and he's just not able to do it. So let's run this thing through. Again, you're going to get the defensive end. I believe that's LT Walton slanting down. McCullers over the top, but he's unable to get there. He just gets caught up in the wash, does not have the athleticism to do it. So here is Walton. He's going to step down. McCullers has to step over the top, but it just becomes a big jumbled mess. He can't get over the top. Guards basically able to seal off both men. And only a 4-yard gain here, but McCullers simply is not doing his job on this play. He cannot get over the top because he's just not a good enough athlete to move laterally like that. All right, this is 2017, also against the Jaguars, in a similar stunt to the first ones we showed, and the one we just showed with McCullers. And Hargrave is able to work over the top here. So again, Hayward's going to slant and shoot the A gap. Hargrave's going to work over the top. He just does a better job being able to scrape, work clean, and finish the play. So Hayward, let me go back to the start of this one. So Hayward's going to shoot the A gap down here, and Hargrave's going to scrape over the top, and the run stunt works really well. Ends up being a short gain here for the Jaguars, I believe. Go through things frame by frame. One last look at it here. Again, Hayward's going to shoot down. Now Hargrave's going to be able to scrape over the top. Left tackle's occupied. Left guard, I should say, is occupied with Hayward shooting that gap, trying to penetrate, trying to cause that disruption in the one gap scheme. And now Hayward's able to work, or excuse me, Hargrave's able to work over the top here because the center does not have leverage on this play and does a nice job of being able to disengage, shed, and make the tackle. And so that is what a run stunt looks like. That's what you could do with Hargrave. Those are things you just could not and have not been able to do and will not be able to do with Daniel McCullers. And again, I'll try to put things side by side. McCullers in 2018 against the Jaguars, Hargrave in 2017 against the Jaguars, to kind of just show the side by side difference of how different each one looks. Hargrave executing the run stunt well, McCullers simply struggling. Of course, this issue of not being able to flow laterally is not exclusive just to run stunts because honestly, they don't do a whole lot of run stunts, but it's going to be an issue just against zone teams. And no team probably runs as much zone run schemes as the 49ers, inside zone and outside wide zone. And you're going to see it here in week 3 this past season against San Francisco, running the zone scheme. McCullough's just unable to flow laterally down and gets reached here by the right guard. So the reach block is basically a down lineman being able to come across and cross your face and hook you and seal you off. That's what the right guard 68 does right here to McCullers on this zone run. So run this thing through, being able to reach, get his head across, and cut off McCullers. So now McCullers is not able to fill his gap, and now Breida hits that lane right between where McCullers is at and where his adjacent help is at. And you see the lane right here because McCullers is not able to be able to flow down, get his head across, be able to make the tackle here. Matt Breida puts his foot in the ground, gets upfield, gets vertical, and it's a 10-yard gain as McCullers goes to the ground, unfortunately. So run this thing full. Again, McCullers simply unable to flow laterally against zone schemes, gets cut off, creates the bubble, creates the opening, back hits it. It's a 10-yard gain. Another look at the same problem also against the 49ers a little earlier in the game. Again, 49ers here going to run this zone scheme. McCullers unable to work his way down the track and just not lateral, not quick enough. And Mostert ends up hitting this one for a good run. Ultimately, Fitzpatrick forces the fumble, steals recover, positive play for the defense as a whole. But McCullers, you just see here, unable to get his head across here from the center, unable to flow down. Actually, not a zone scheme, it's a toss play here, but still same idea. Got able to flow down the line laterally. And you see there's just this big hole here from McCullers to the lineman next to him. Everyone has their gap. Everyone has their head across. You see Watt, that's Barron. I believe that's Tuitt there. They're getting their head across. They're flowing in the line. They're pushing the back to into that cutback lane. And if McCullers does his job, able to get down the line too, then this back just keeps having to cut back, cut back, cut back. You got forced backside with Dupree. Fortunately, McCullers unable to do that. You see his posture much different than every other player I'm pointing out here. That creates the lane and it creates the gap for Mostert to hit this one for a good gain. It would have been a good gain had Fitzpatrick not bailed him out and forced the fumble at the end of things. So let me run this thing through. And again, this is not McCullers' fault necessarily because he's Big Dan McCullers, and what do you expect here? But it just becomes much more limiting where you can't do the run stunts, where you're going to be vulnerable against these zone schemes. The offense is, of course, going to know that, and it's going to hurt you. So it's not that it's McCullers' fault, but it's just the reason why you can't start him because you're going to be so limited and so susceptible to some of these issues that offenses are going to present. And certainly they're going to exploit that weakness as much as possible. And just for comparison to see the difference between McCullers and Hargrave, this is week 16 against the Jets this past season. And you see Hargrave, I mean, you see the strength, be able to penetrate, but also worked on the line, not be able to get reached, be able to keep his head free and his arm free to make this play on Le'Veon Bell working against 78 here. He's getting penetration. He's also flowing laterally. He's now in good position. His head's across. He's not getting reached and sealed by the offensive lineman here. And he's able to make the tackle on Le'Veon Bell, I believe, for a short loss on this play. So that's the advantage to Hargrave, more explosive. You're able to flow, you're able to convert speed to power, a little bit more creep penetration, just fits that one gap scheme a whole lot better. So again, I'm not really necessarily blaming McCullers here because he's 340 some pounds and he's just not going to function in the scheme. But that's the reason why You just can't start him. You have to go with Tyson Alualu as your guy. He's going to have his limitations too, of course. He's not Javon Hargrave. No one in this defense can replace Hargrave as that, in that nose tackle role, the way that Hargrave was able to play it and really evolve and be part of that new age, new wave defense. But he's going to give you the better shot. He's going to give you more flexibility, both positionally. He can line up with basically the whole front. He's going to be able to run stunt more. He's going to be able to flow better against these zone schemes. McCullers is not going to be able to do that. That's why he's been a career backup. 10, 15 years ago, would have had a much more value, a much better role, much better chance to make an impact with McCullers. Just game and his strengths do not fit where the NFL is at today. So that's why he cannot be the Steelers starting nose tackle in 2020. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the Steelers nose tackle situation. If you disagree, let me know your thoughts. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.